Good morning. We'll call the Candioi County Board of Commissioners meeting to order on today, August 20th. First order of business is stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, everyone, and everyone who is watching on YouTube today. This is our regular second board meeting of the month, and we have a moderate agenda today. But the first order of business is to approve the agenda.
So
You
move,
see that in
Mr.
your
Chair.
packet and have it in front of you. So Commissioner Gardner moves on the agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the consent agenda, which consists of the approval of the August 6th meeting minutes, the approval of the auditor's warrants and claims, the approval of the human services warrants and claims. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll move on the consent agenda.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves on the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that message.
Commissioner Berg seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Under general business discussion and updates, first item of business is the inclusive equity group doing business as the land liquor license application. Wanda, are you going to be presenting on that? Please come to the podium. And even though people may know who you are, the audience may not. So state your name and who you're here representing.
I am Wanda Stallman, representing the Candioi County Auditor Treasurer's Office.
You may proceed.
Okay, so I am here to get approval and signatures for a wine license for on sale with strong beer approval and an on sale 3.2 malt liquor license for the Inclusive Equity Group doing business as the land at the former Glacial Ridge Winery location.
Okay. And do you have a recommendation for the board?
I recommend that you approve the license.
Okay. You heard staff's recommendation to approve the license for the Inclusive Equity Group. Any discussion? Or I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Commissioner Berg moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, Mr.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments? Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chair, yeah. Just a question. The previous owners, they also had a license there as well, correct?
Yeah.
And the same type of license. So
Yeah.
just different ownership, same location, same rules and regulations. And
Yes.
Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Wanda.
Thank you.
Next up, Candioi County Housing and Redevelopment Authority report and Jill Bankston. Good morning, Jill.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board, members of the public. My name is Jill Bankson. I'm the Executive Director of the Candioi County Housing and Redevelopment Authority. And purpose for being here today is to give you a report on our activities and request you approve our tax levy request. So in your packets, you should have a handout from us, and it kind of goes through and talks about what our vision statement is, what our mission statement, who's on our board, who's on the staff, couple notes and highlights from the year and things coming up. So we have been implementing a small cities development program for the city of Atwater. We have finished the Atwater Community Center rehab. They did have some very competitive bids, and they do have some money left over, so they now are looking at how they're going to spend about another $50,000 of that grant. And then we are moving forward with doing rehab for some owner-occupied single-family houses in town. We did complete our $3.7 million window replacement and seal coat project at our Lakeview Apartments. That was a very large undertaking. We applied to Minnesota Housing for a workforce housing development project to construct a fourplex in Atwater. We were supposed to have heard the outcome of that this week, but it was not included in the state board's packet. So I understand we'll be hearing the outcome of that project in September. In 2025, we will be starting to administer a state-funded Bring It Home rental assistance program. This is new money that was passed in the 2023 legislature to start a state rental assistance program. And this will assist approximately 24 additional households in the county. In April, we're going to be hosting a landlord event to provide information on all the new landlord-tenant laws that have been passed in the state during the 2023 and 2024 legislative sessions, and also to provide information on new inspection standards being implemented by the federal government for landlords that work with us in our rental assistance programs. Those new standards were supposed to go into effect in October, and that has been delayed a year. So we are postponing our event until next April. We are still waiting for the state to release requests for proposals for matching funds for the Housing Trust Fund. The latest I heard is that might be released this fall, so we anticipate applying for that in early 2025. And then the HRA further intends to implement additional development activities in the county through land acquisition, continued funding of the Housing Trust Fund, and pursuing other development funding as those opportunities arise. And I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get into our levy request here. The rest of the handout just shows you our existing projects and that we either own or manage in the county. I won't go through this in great detail. There's additional information on the tenant-based rental assistance programs. As I'm sure you know, in addition to managing the Candy HRA, we also manage the McLeod County HRA, and we manage projects for 5 other private owners. Page 6 gets into other projects that I just talked about. We've completed the City of Willmar 2019 Small Cities Project. The Atwater project is in process. We have a down payment assistance program. Each January, we apply for a set aside of mortgage funds for the county. This is an application government entities have to apply to for the state, and those mortgage dollars only come to those entities that apply for it. So for Candy, Ohio County in 2024, $818,189 has been set aside. To date, 19 loans have been made by the private banks in the area. I'm starting on page 9. I just wanted to point out a few items of information. As you know, when COVID was in place, there was a moratorium on evictions, and you can kind of see on that chart there the August 20 stats where everything had kind of dropped. In June of 22, evictions really took off after the moratorium was lifted. The state's kind of at an all-time high with evictions. It has dropped down a little bit in summer of 2024, but it does seem to be a kind of an ongoing thing and a lot we've seen in our agency. On page 10, you can see building permit statistics for single-family homes in Candy, Ohio County. We kind of had a rise in building in 2020, 2021. It did drop off in 23. And of course, page 11 reflects the multifamily building permits, and we all know there was a lot built between 2019 and 2023, and it's current to date.
Excuse me, just
Go ahead.
on that chart that shows the building permits, it says newly privately owned, but this isn't owner-owned necessarily, is it? These could be apartment buildings that somebody puts up, but it's not HRA and it's not.
That's correct. So page 11 is, all apartment buildings. Page 10 is single family.
Thank you.
Yeah. Page 11 then is just kind of showing you what Candy, Ohio County, what the market for single family homes selling is looking like. in July 2024 compared to 2023. New listings are down, pending sales are down, closed sales are up a little bit. Median sales price continues to go up. Percentage of original list price, that has gone up a little bit. Days on the market is a little bit longer, but the month's supply of inventory is down again. There are only 2.2 months of inventory in the single family sales market. I'm going to go back to page 8 now and talk about our tax levy request. So for 2025, the HRA is requesting $1,150,450 in tax levy funding. This is a large increase for the HRA if you look at percentage-wise. I don't like to look at percentage-wise because the smaller your budget is, any kind of increase, it looks huge when you look at percentages, but it is a 27.8% increase in the tax levy. The HRA's current tax levy is $900,450. Our reason for this large increase, which is $250,000, is because we have added into our budget $600,000 for acquiring land within the county, wherever that may be, for single family or for multifamily, to pursue additional state and federal dollars to develop single family owner occupied housing for first time buyer markets, as well as developing affordable multifamily. Those projects take a lot of combining of resources. They are very competitive, and we feel this is just a way to put ourselves in a more competitive funding place when we are going after dollars. Every summer in June, July, there is an RFP from the state for developing single family housing, and we would like to position ourselves better for that.
Jill, and much of what you're talking about is the required matches for applying for
Yes.
federal grants, correct?
Yeah. You know, as we worked through the application for the Atwater project, there is lots of scoring criteria that is available to us to determine how we think we're going to point out in the system of the state. So when you have when you're putting money in projects, when you have land available that you've secured, all those kinds of things, they get you higher in the rankings. So that's what we're trying to do here, is get ourselves better positioned. Looking at our revenue, you can see we are predominantly federal and state funded at 39% of our budget. And then the remaining parts of our budget are, you know, kind of within a percentage or two of each other. So 17% of our budget comes from rent, fees, and interest from the tenants that we receive rent from. Fees for service, so those are the fees we receive for managing other agencies. So that'd be the McLeod County HRA and all the private tax credit projects. And then our tax levy is at 16% and our reserves are at 13%. And again, we're pulling funding out of this for, the reserves are for capital projects for internal buildings or as I mentioned, the $600,000 for the acquiring land, or $150,000 that we'll be putting towards the housing trust fund. On the expenses side, being the entity that we are highly administrative costs. Building taxes, insurance, debt service accounts for 5%. Building maintenance, repairs, capital costs, 22%. Rental assistance is 30%. Home business loans, local housing trust fund, $250,000. With that, I will stand for questions.
Any questions for Ms. Bankston? Go ahead.
It looks like Steve wants to say something, wants me to go first. Sure, okay. Mr. Chair?
Go
Yes,
ahead.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a chance to talk to you briefly before, just to kind of go over a couple of the things again. The good news is it's a lot of money, but it's when you talk about percentage, it's smaller dollar amounts than say the county levy, which could be a lot smaller percentage. So I recognize that. It's just that there's been a very big increase, and I don't think historically has the county ever said no, that's too big of an increase.
They have never said
Said
no.
that, okay. And is this the biggest increase you've ever had?
This is
Biggest
the
increase
biggest
ever.
ever.
And my other question is, and I shared with you too as well, administrative costs of 39%, and that's mainly staff. And that could be to add additional staff. Am I correct?
Yeah, that would be, everything. That would be staff, rent, insurance, you know, office supply. I mean, everything to run the office would be included in that percentage.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the levy increase and funds that mainly? Or is that going to buy the land as well? Or what percentage is being used for different aspects of it?
Let's see.
I didn't ask you that question ahead of time.
Yeah,
And
So-
if you can't answer that, I certainly understand. Not a problem.
sure. So I will just say I can work out that number in but out of the 1,150,450, 700,000 will be for land purchase, funding the housing trust fund. Those all come out of the tax levy. The tax levy does support administratively managing all those other things we do. Yeah.
And if I understand what you're saying, the majority of these dollars increases will be looking more at single family housing? Or
It's the land,
the land would be,
we're really going to focus on single family housing.
Yep.
And if there's opportunity to do another affordable housing project, probably outside of the city of Wilmer, because I think Wilmer's kind of been covered here. But we need to look at what's available for land and then what we can acquire it for.
and then these are dollars then to use towards that
Yes.
you're hoping to get that
Yes.
down the road. And okay,
Well, much
Thank
of
you.
it, much of it is for matching federal
Federal funds,
grants.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And offhand, are the matches a percent of the application? And is that fairly consistent?
I've not seen it broken down by percentages. It's more, once you submit these projects, Minnesota Housing they hand it off to their underwriters and look at, they're not just looking at what's in the match, but does it cash flow? Are the rents at the right amount? What's the debt service coverage? What's the return on it, all of that. So
So where, in your experience, has kind of been the sweet spot for the match? I mean, you don't want to put too little on and jeopardize your chances of getting a grant. You don't want to put too much on to jeopardize your chance of getting a lower.
it honestly, I don't think I could pinpoint one thing. More is better. More is better, and more layers that you bring into it is better. Not just coming and saying, well, the HRA is going to do this, so state, we want all this. It's like trying to uncover everything, bringing other sources in, bringing deed in if you can, bringing in, housing trust funds will be big.
Commissioner,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jill, thank you for bringing this to us today. It's been my pleasure since I came on the board to be the liaison for the county board to the HRA. We had an historic investment in housing from the legislature back in 2023 and to a smaller degree this past session. But a lot of that has yet to roll out. I mean, in your report, you mentioned some of these areas where we're waiting on the state to either get their RFP out or things like that. So it doesn't happen overnight. But what I see this levy increase request being able to do, and you've already alluded to it, is to position the HRA better for being able to respond to those particular opportunities when they come out. Statutorily, you have an even higher amount that you could levy under this. I don't remember what that is, but it's considerably higher than what the requested overall levy is going to be. Uh, Can you talk a little bit about some of those areas that we want to be able to be ready for? Certainly the single family housing, but
Right, certainly the single family, certainly doing more rehab with single family in communities. That means more, small cities grants, that kind of thing. Certainly doing more workforce housing if we get funded and can move on to that. But I think also maybe just, with the housing trust fund, I honestly haven't talked of this a lot with the board. We're gonna be doing some strategic planning in September here. But just kind of creating our own local programs that entices more private developers in is what I would like to see. You know, I, our private, I would like to see, more of our local builders working with us more and seeing if there's ways that we can entice them to do more first time buyer market kind of homes. So, because I think there's a huge need for that. I mean, we all know there's a huge need for that.
and I appreciate that because I mean the chart that you're showing here in terms of the single family, I mean single family construction in Candiota County is near an all-time low, and none of that is happening in the entry level
Right.
arena. So to that point, because we know that we've got kind of a bollocksed up housing market right now, where a lot of people aren't moving on from those homes that they would otherwise downsize from. So we need to be able to create some new stock, and I'm fully supportive of this request.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
Yeah, so my, my question is, looking at these different rental places, how do you determine how much to charge, or how is that determined the rental rate? Some it says 30% of gross
Right.
income, adjusted gross income.
Yeah. So anything that is not a market rate project, and our only market rate projects typically, I guess I can call them market rate, would be our units in Candy, Ohio, in New London, Pennock, and Raymond. So anything in Wilmer is all determined by the federal or state funding sources that are in there.
So
yes.
you tell them what you would like, and they would say, no, it's here.
Yes, yeah.
Approve it or deny it.
Yep. For a lot of them, for example, all the tax credit projects, we have to send a budget in annually to the state of Minnesota and to the investors, and everybody has to, first the investors kind of look at it, but then Minnesota Housing has the final say on whether the rent amount we're proposing can be there or not.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Berg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to make a couple comments here, and maybe I have a question to you as well. I think we also have to look at it from the point of view of the economic impact on the county as well. And so building this, it creates jobs, and people are spending money and doing these things here. So there is a payback for the county indirectly of doing that. And also, I just want to point out to the public that when we talk about 27 or 28% increase in the levy, it's not like the increase in the levy that the county impact would have. And I would think this would be a very small amount. You wouldn't have any idea what the impact on an individual.
On an individual, no.
I don't think so. I think it would be
200,
pretty
yeah.
small when it was at $250,000, which still is a lot of money. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But when you spread it out, service really very well needed, and very well respected in our community, and especially the single family housing.
Thank you.
Did you have a question?
No, not a question, more of a comment, Jill. Isn't it like how it affects the overall county, like 0.81 in the grand scheme of the budget? That percentage maybe is what Commissioner Berg is asking. What's that percentage that it affects the overall county property tax levy?
Mhm.
And it's less than 1%.
Yes.
And it's some odd, it's like 0.1
.00018.
Yeah, 817, it's something like that, but Jill and I could probably get that information, but it's a very small percentage amount, how it affects the overall property tax levy of the entire county as a whole.
I think you answered my question. That's what I thought the answer would be as well. So, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Well, I certainly want to applaud you, Jill, for your effort to look outside in the remaining area of Kansas County. I serve on the New London EDA, and we've spent the last 4 years almost looking at ways that we can, and we've had some success looking at ways of bringing more housing. In my case, I'm looking at New London because I serve on that EDA, but it's a challenge in the smaller towns. Number one, unlike the city of Wilmer, the small towns can't offer the tax increment financing that is often applied here in Wilmer. And we don't have those subsidy opportunities to attract the builders. We've had several builders, developers take a look at coming in, and but we have thus far been unable to entice them to take that step. And I also appreciate your uh, effort to try to include local builders because it seems like most of what's been done so far has been outside entities coming in and building, bringing in traveling contractors. So really isn't. It helps if they're staying in hotels and eating in local restaurants. It certainly helps the economy there. But it's not local jobs that are necessarily a result of most of the apartments that have been up lately as they're travelers. So I really appreciate that effort for the communities in Kennewick County.
Thank you.
Other comments? Well, thank you again for that presentation. And I know you have a tour. You want to talk about that just a little bit about, we got some invites yesterday for a tour.
Sure. Yeah. So our HRA board, because they're going to be doing some strategic planning, they wanted to do, it's been a while, probably before COVID, since we've kind of toured all our projects and we have some change on the board since then. So we're going to tour everything over 3 consecutive Wednesday evenings. You all should have received an invitation as well to come.
I did make a comment on one of those dates. Likely all of us will be at the Fall Policy Conference
Okay.
in Alexandria.
Sure. Okay. Right.
Right.
You do need to take a vote on the levy.
So you've heard from Ms. Bankston about the levy request. I would entertain a motion for the request that has been presented.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the HRA request.
Mr. Gardner moves on the HRA request. Do I hear a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any discussion, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that one was a little tougher. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Who's bringing in that? We are expecting a unannounced guest in just a minute, so if you bear with us, we'll.
He's a new member of the
Yeah, it wasn't on the agenda, but it is now. Here, making their grand entrance as we speak.
Oh, my goodness.
Oh,
Ah,
Good morning. Yeah, thank you for coming on up, and maybe you want to introduce yourself and the deputy and the staff.
Yes, good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Eric Tollefson, Candido County Sheriff. Here we have Deputy Vilke, who's a handler for our newest canine Maverick. And I'll let them take it away here. So Maverick just started working 2 months ago.
Yeah, we were done with training the first week in June.
He came into existence through a generous donation from the Wilmer Area Community Foundation and also Dunnett Corporation. So, but yeah, 13 weeks of training, predominantly down in the metro or northwest metro, I think. But
Deputy Bilkey, do you have anything you want to add to that? Introduce yourself perhaps, and
Okay.
if you'd come up to the podium and say who you are and who's with you,
Yeah.
because there may be somebody watching and they'd be interested in that. Speak
What's that?
into the mic.
Deputy Bilkey, obviously work for the sheriff's office, been there almost 6 years now. This is Canine Maverick, he's a black lab. He's 1 year and 4 months now. Other than that, do you guys have any actual questions as to?
He's been out on any calls.
Commissioner Dwight, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so like I said, he went into active service after his 13 weeks. We're looking at, we just asked Deputy Bilkey about the number of callouts he's had. He was just out Friday, right, for a search. So he's already actively working and earning his keep, I guess, so to speak.
His ball.
Yeah. Earning his tug.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
Yeah, so he doesn't look like a typical canine that we see. Is he, for drug searches or?
So he's a narcotic dog. He also does tracking for humans, area searching for
Okay.
humans, and evidence searching. So anything that would have like a human odor on it, whether it's a gun, a cell phone, anything for evidence wise, like if someone fled a vehicle and they were ditching stuff, or maybe you did a shoplifting or ditching articles, that would be like your evidence searching.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's so when it comes to law enforcement canines, there's like 2 categories of dogs. Like I think they policed 1 dog. Is that what they're called? So that would be Cooper, who's been with us for a little over 10 years. He does apprehension, which is a nice way of saying that he will use his mouth to apprehend somebody. But Maverick is a passive tracking dog. So even if he is tracking a suspect, someone wanted for a crime, he won't do the apprehension piece. Chime in if I'm wrong here, because I've never been a handler, but so that's but he does everything else. And of course, he's not been trained in the detection of marijuana. So all the other controlled substances, things like that.
Any questions or comments for Deputy Bilkey? I might put you on the spot after they're done. Yep, go ahead.
Just a comment. This is really fantastic. I think it's such an asset to have for your own safety as well, even though he's not that kind of dog, but he can do those things that you would be able to watch him do, and from a distance even, and be a lot safer what you're doing. That's really important. So thank you.
Yeah.
It must take quite a time and commitment. Yeah. And so a couple of questions. Yeah. Does he go home with you, or where does he stay, and how do you do all that?
Yep. So he comes home with me at the end of my shift or my days off. He's at home just living a pet life, basically. That's his time off too. Else, when I'm at work, he's with me. So when he retires, he'll be with me too.
Okay. He doesn't require any overtime pay then?
So a follow-up question to that, how much training did you have to partake in order to be a handler?
So it was the 13 weeks for the both of us. We
You were
both
both-
learned basically together how to
Okay.
do everything.
Wow.
And it's continuously training
You
after
had-
the fact.
How much time did you have to acclimate with each other prior to starting school?
Oh, when did I get him? In February, and we started in March. So roughly 3 to 4 weeks I had him before I went to training.
And he was how old?
Yeah, 9 months.
And here's where I put you on the spot. If you're able and willing, can you do a demonstration of some of his skills?
I can do some obedience, but other than I don't have
Go
anything
ahead.
else to do.
Go ahead. Yeah, you don't have any cadavers to look for or anything like that. I think the camera would capture you if you do it up front.
Well, from here, right?
Sit. No. Yep. Yes, you. Got a little boy.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Yes. That's about the obedience.
Thank you for that. We appreciate you
I know.
bringing Maverick in, and with that, unless you have any closing comments, Sheriff or Deputy, we will
Yep, no, I just
Thank you for
appreciate
being
the support the community has given us with Maverick. I mean, he's a great, he kind of gaps those bridges between us and the community. I mean, that's another great asset that canines do for us, as well as working, so, but yeah, he's been great. It's been great. It's been really well received within the community, so.
And I was right next to you at the county fair, and I noticed he was a great hit with the kids, as was the
Absolutely.
robot. And so we're kind of
Yes.
putting you on notice about the robot.
Yep, that's right. We'll have to
Commissioner Berg.
introduce him one day.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question too. Do we, what's the right word? Share him, for example, with the Wilmer PD or with the drug task force? Or do you ever called in on those calls too?
Yes, I think it was a Wilmer call last Friday. Yeah, last Friday was to assist Wilmer, and then also outlying agencies as well.
That's what I was wondering.
Absolutely.
Good.
If available, we got a protocol for call in and, so.
Great. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Let's take a 5-minute break. Recess. Okay.
Have this over.
I
with.
get Ralph. We'll reconvene the Kennewick County Board of Commissioners. And so up next on the agenda is the West Central Advocacy and Inclusion Matter Report. And Val is going to be presenting on that. Sorry, Valoris is.
Yes, correct. That's okay. I'm very used to it.
So again, because there's a camera above you, so if you have any presentation material to share, you can do that, and then announce who you are and who you represent for the audience.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. I'm Dolores Anderson. I am the Executive Director of Advocacy and Inclusion Matters of West Central Minnesota, also known as AIM. So there's a little mishap there. I've been serving as in this position since November of 2020. We were founded back in 1957. At that time, we were called the ARC of Candy, Ohio County. The board of directors consists of family members, professionals, school staff, and People First representatives. In February of 2016, the board decided to reorganize and change their name to our current. In January of 23, AIM, the board of directors, completed their strategic plan, giving new goals and understanding of how we want to carry out our future mission. AIM provides opportunities, resources to support inclusion, independence for people with disabilities. We mostly serve individuals that are 18 and over currently, is how we serve. Within that, we have 4 pillars that kind of represent who AIM is. So advocacy is for helping express their views, their thoughts, and concerns. How we're able to do that is because we have People First group is under AIM. They take and elect their own officers, take pride in putting together their own events per month, fundraising for their group, and being out in the community and speaking up about their concerns. AIM also participates in the MMDC Transportation Advisory Council, Minnesota Nonprofit, Bridge Builders, Empowered Nonprofit of Wilmer. And biannually, we also host a town hall forum. And this year, we actually went and toured the state capitol because of a grant from Vision 2040. This is something that we actually will hopefully keep in the rotation. One year we'll go to the capitol and the other year we'll do a town hall forum. They felt that it was very beneficial and they learned a lot and understood how the different rules and lawmaking happens and why they should be involved more. Our other one is wellness. Is supporting daily healthy habits and obtain a better physical and mental health. AIM offers this with our walking club, our healthy living class, fitness, bowling league. Disc golf was a new thing that we added. We had a gentleman that offered to teach our individuals how to play disc golf. They've enjoyed it 4 different times. Actually, they'll have one more time here in September. Promote other advocacy activities. We partner and try to work with the Wilmer Parks and Rec, Wilmer Community Ed to offer their different things, and some of our events are also showcased in theirs. Education is to learn new skills. And so with offering our outings and our classes, we're able to structure and encourage growth and new skills for our individuals. And we try to do that with different tours or people coming in and showing them what they know of different knowledge. Social inclusion, this is probably our biggest highlight and the most that probably everybody in the community knows us for, is giving opportunities to be with their peers and being in the community. How do we do that? The biggest one is dances. So we host 3 dances throughout the year. Painting, crafting, games, tours, boating trips, plays at the Barn Theater. We also have bingo is another huge aspect for us. So within that social inclusion, we also encourage them to be volunteering. So we help with the Candy Ohio County Fair, cleaning a building there. Wilmer Newton Lions, they have a dog park. We've been doing that. Celebration of the Lights, putting them up. It's easier for us to put them up than it is to kind of take it down. We just kind of work with what our individuals are able to do. Within that, everything that we do for planning our opportunities for our participants, A lot of things we keep in mind when we're planning anything, and the offer that people give to us, we keep in mind of a lot of our individuals are in the lower income, staffing at their homes or places, location, and transportation are hugest barriers. And so everything that we do, we make sure that we're making sure that it's available and welcoming to everybody that on all levels with disabilities. We mainly serve Candiota County, but we have been able, because we are West Central, we are branching out into the other counties. A fun story, last night we just, because of the New London Spicer Fund grant, we had an event at Big Kahuna in Spicer, great turnout. We actually had people all the way from Montevideo and Benson last night. So it was fun for us to have that. And our other ones were Spicer and Wilmer and stuff. So those are great ways. So we're also reaching out Candiota High, Stearns, Meeker, Pope, Swift, Renville. So we are getting into the different counties, which is exactly what we want to do as our board, the board wants. That's the direction they want to go into. And on your agenda, you also have a flyer that was given to you. That flyer was put together. It just shows you kind of what we're currently doing. And if you flip to the backside, it shows our strengths and our growth and how we're trying to move forward. The board themselves took initiative by taking our strategic plan, and it is on our agenda at all times and is recapped at our May meeting. We meet every other month, and they made sure that our budget and our strategic plan is reviewed in May. And currently we are on track for what we're doing. We are getting ready for our next step of hopefully adding a position and stuff like that of more aspects. With AIM, we wouldn't be anywhere if we wouldn't have our volunteers. So AIM is very grateful for all of them helping with the different pillars that we have. And we also are grateful for our sponsors. We have donors, we have grants, and other funds from our programs. So we do charge a fee on our programs, but we keep them very low. But it's just easier to have a small fee, so they make sure that they are committed to be coming to the event. Or like our walking club happens every Wednesday. So just making sure that they're understanding that just because you have a disability doesn't mean that you can't pay forward, and making sure that you're accountable for things. So we do that. We currently recognize all of them with our newsletter and on our website. And then currently we haven't been able to get into any of the states or county, we've never really looked at county, I guess. State funding, we looked at a couple years ago, it just timing wasn't there for us, and what they were wanting, we couldn't surpass. And right now, we currently run under $100,000 for a budget. And we, on a normal basis, we offer anywhere from 5 to 8 different opportunities within a month on average. So biggest reason we can do that is because of partnering with the groups, other organizations, and businesses in the local area and surrounding. They're able to come and give these opportunities at a reasonable price. And we continue to work with different people on what we can offer to them. So we appreciate that, and that people are always looking to give us ideas of how to make sure our individuals are being out. So we are something that is above and beyond what would be a provider or a day service. We're just making sure that there's an aspect that they could get with their peers and not in a provider setting or a work setting. So right now I'd like to say thank you so much for having me come and speak to you guys, and we're great to be in this community, and it's been a great time.
Thank you. I have several questions. I'm sure others do too, but before I turn it over, I saw a hand go up on my right side. Do you have a board of directors, and talk a little bit about that if you do, and then maybe you said it, I missed it, staff.
Okay, so our board of directors are currently made up of 9 people.
Okay.
And they're from within, most of them all currently live right here in Candiota County. So we have representatives from our People First. We have people from just our school districts. We have 2 that are on their school district. We have a couple that are within providers. They work for providers. And some individuals that have maybe been in a provider setting, or they are family. They have family that are with disabilities. So a lot of our board is connected somehow with and has the knowledge of what disabilities and the struggles that they all go through on a normal basis. And currently, I am the only
Half of one.
staff.
I kind of thought so. No. All right, Commissioner Berg.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions. Yeah, ARC and now AIM has been around here for a long time, but an important role it plays in our community. And I don't think the public realizes that we're really a regional center, even bigger than a regional center for people with disabilities. And I think that's a real plus. We got a long ways to go to meet those needs, though, and to become really more stable as an organization doing that. It's great for the economy. It's great for the people that live here. Last year or the year before, when I was working the fair booth, one person came up and they said, "Oh, we just recently moved here from out of state, actually. They heard about the services and they had an adult child who with disabilities. And this is a good place to be." And they were just really excited about being here. And it's good. There's different funding and different ways. It's not just the individuals you're working with are just some of them, and also they're involved in other things as well. So, but I want to thank you for what you're doing. And I just had a question. Can you expound a little bit more on your budget? It's $100,000, and where do you, how do you get by, and how do you get that?
Well, we're very grateful for the different grants that we get.
Okay.
That is our hugest aspect. But most of those are actually grants that are for programs. So general operating really typically relies on our fundraising and stuff like that. There is a few grants that offer general operating. This year we were gracious enough to get one from Wilmer Area Community Foundation that was just for general operating, so that helped. Over half the budget is actually for programming and everything.
Thank you.
So when you talk about some of the, a follow-up to his question on the budget, I'm guessing, I think I heard you say it, but not as explicit. Some of the funding actually might be in kind, like when say if the big kahuna doesn't half price or something like that. Is that included in your budget, if you will?
We have very little that are in kind right now. Our in kind ones actually end up being when we do the community spotlight, our advertising on that. That's where a lot of the in kind, or a lot of our in kind is for maybe the items that we need to have for a craft that we're doing and stuff like that. So not always for the whole event. So,
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dolores, thanks for coming today. I had the pleasure of being part of a listening panel along with our local legislators and city officials at our at one of your more recent annual meetings. One of the things that we heard out of that, and that has stuck with me, is the concern of your members about pedestrian safety, specifically around that First Street and Wilmer Avenue corridor. Is your group working with any of the other entities like MMDC and Safe Streets and that type of thing?
correct. Actually, we have just on Thursday, last Thursday, we toured the airport for Wilmer, and then Sarah Swedberg actually came. And so when half of them were out on the tour, the other half learned about what the survey and Safe Street information is happening right now. And she requested that they filled out surveys and got done. So we partner with that. We also partnered with MMDC when they first originally put all their stuff together for surveys. Because of those two, we have been able to make some strides in our transportation. So we're very grateful for all of that. And we try to connect them to give them an opportunity to come to our individuals, because that's much easier for them to come to where our individuals are than our individuals to try to go to any of the pre-meetings that they have, because that takes a lot for them to try to figure out how to get transportation and a staff. Maybe it also might not have maybe the accessibility that they want or the comfortability. You know, that's the other thing. Our individuals will speak and talk about, but they also got to feel comfortable about being there to do that. So we're excited. Actually, last night I had 6 surveys already dropped off from when they were at the airport to the Big Kahuna. So I'm pretty pumped. So I'll actually get to tell Sarah that, So she was wondering how that was all going to work. We had about 40 people out at the airport. So 40 and then having 6 returned already is a very good outcome for us.
Is 40 a typical number for your outings?
Actually, all of our outings vary. So our typical classes, like our healthy living and fitness, they roughly range from about 10 to 15. Our walking club has grown. That was started back in pre-COVID, unfortunately. But after COVID, we're roughly about 31 individuals signed up for that, but that doesn't include staff that comes with them. So the group can get pretty close, and they utilize Robbins Island for that. Our fall festival that we'll have at Robbins Island will roughly come to about 100 people. That includes the staff and all of that. A lot of our dances are anywhere from 50 to 250 people.
Commissioner Delaney.
I just got a quick question. So if somebody wants to participate in what you guys do, how do they find out about you? And maybe somebody wants to donate some money, and how can they contact you?
Yep. So they can always call us. So 231-1777, or look us up on AIM, WCM.org. Also, Wilmer Area Community Foundation always knows where we're at. Wilmer Lakes Chamber, they're always very helpful to us. So, and making sure that we're known.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry, Commissioner Nealanders.
I just like to thank Flores for coming and presenting. I think Flores and that whole AIM community does a lot with very little. So I think that's my biggest thing is they don't have a lot of money and they don't have a lot to work with, but I think they do a great service for the community, and getting these people out and giving them a chance to be part of our community is very important. They've done a great job at our county fair, helping out with cleaning buildings and stuff beforehand and stuff like that. But also the dances, I think, are a huge thing that you do. So I want to thank you for doing that. I think it's a great thing that these people have a chance to have some fun and be part of our community. So thank you.
Thank you.
So, excuse me. You said there's some clients will maybe do one thing like walk, or some might do one thing like go to the Big Kahuna. In a year, how many different people do you touch with your services?
We're over 1,000 individuals,
So that is a really, really good return on your investment when you look at that total budget.
Yeah.
Serving that many people.
And some are maybe like, actually, when I pulled in this morning, we invested a couple years ago. I told the board that it would be beneficial for them that when we're out at so many outings that we have a cell phone. So actually, when you call the cell phone or the regular office, it actually rings to the cell phone. It's great because our individuals, if they can't figure out where we're at or if staffing, we're able to get them to our locations and make sure. One of them just texted me this morning. Hey, just wanted to say hi. Have a great day. And so I texted her and said, don't forget to get out because it's great outside. She's one that needs some encouragement on her healthy living. So we just try to do those little things and try to make sure that they're.
So I just have one more question then. So you said transportation. Do you participate with like Central Community Transit, or do you do your own transportation? How does that
So we don't offer any transportation. We feel that it wouldn't be beneficial with our small budget to increase it heavily to operate a bus, van, anything like that. So we really rely and promote CCT. We work with MMDC to try to figure out, when we went to the cities to the Capitol tour, they were on helping me try to figure out how we get that to happen. But for me to sit on another thing and try to maintain, we just can't.
So you help them with information on how to get there.
Correct. Yep. We're offering all the time, encouraging them that already use what's already here. Why? Our thought is the board has given me as the thought is, why should we create something of items that are already here? We need to enhance those and keep pushing for those. And the nice part for me is I get to sit on the MMDC and keep reiterating that of like, we need this transportation. We need the CCT to be at the bus stops and picking up our individuals when they request it, or they need to utilize the taxis that we do have here. Unfortunately, the taxis do cost a lot. So one of our biggest things is to get transportation all the way up to New London for our bowling that happens on Saturday. But some of our providers, providers can't pick up for another provider, but a provider can pick up for another house and be in their own providers. So that has been encouraged, and we're like, if you as one provider can help another person there in your van that's already going there, please do that. So we've done that, and that's been helping. And that used to be only about 15, and last year we had 25 individuals bowling. So,
Well, thank you so much for that report, and very informative, and keep up the good work.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
So actually, that is a very good segue into our next presentation. Sarah Carlson, Executive Director of the Wilmer Area Community Foundation, and an update on, well, I'll let you introduce yourself and then proceed with your update.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Sarah Carlson. I'm the Executive Director of the Wilmer Area Community Foundation, who proudly serves all of Candiota County for the last 26 years. Mr. Chair, members of the board, staff, and public, I am here to give you an update as requested on the Special Needs Fund. And this is a unique partnership that established about 15 months ago between Candiota County and the Community Foundation. This is testing a way that we are working to exploit our expertise as investment, grant maker, and determining priorities and needs in the community alongside the expertise of your staff who know how to serve people best. And so it's paving some pathways, I think, for ways that we can partner in other ways in addition. But just for a reminder, these resources came from the closure of the CandyWorks DAC space in Candy, Ohio, and they are really intended for the use of persons with disabilities from cradle to grave. And so we have had those resources now about 14 months. Just to recap, those resources came over in roughly the $593,000 range. And you did ask us for a conservative, protective investment strategy, but that allowed for a little bit of growth. And I'm here to tell you today that you're $10,000 richer with $603,000 in the fund through the partnership at the Community Foundation. So as we've been working with your lead staff entities here, we have really come to the conclusion that we need to be watching for a mix of immediate needs, but also this once in a generation moment that we have with these resources. These resources are not, sadly, widely available on the regular basis for Candiota County, and so we want to have a really discerning approach to how are we going to use those and reinvest those back into the community to float the most boats for Candiota County. And so your team convened a provider panel and got some feedback from them about what would be some immediate needs. And some of the immediate needs were, upwards of $50,000 to take down a wall. That wasn't going to increase anyone's service. It wasn't going to increase the number of people that they could serve. It was just taking down a wall. To helping with potentially a deposit on a bus that would be delivered 3 years from now, or doing some additional operations and workforce provision, small needs. And as we thought about that, we really weren't sure that that was really the intention of that resource because it could take half of the fund. And so we pulled back and thought again about that generational need. And while we did that, to give the latitude for your board and your staff experts to make decisions about the fund, the Community Foundation stepped up our grant making in the disability and mental health space. So you heard Valoris talk about us gifting them $20,000 to operate. We did that so that we could have this time
to really think strategically. That's what you asked us for at the Community Foundation, and that's what we're happy to do. It's not that any of those needs were not legitimate. They were all legitimate. It's just, was that really what you wanted us to do with the funds? And when we came back to it, we kept saying, and when we checked in with a number of you, you kept telling us, no, that's really not what you wanted us to do with the funds. So again, we have been really in that space of considering generational impact possibilities. And so one of the things that came up in conversation was a model that I think you as commissioners have heard about at your peer organizations called a Family Resource Center. And we learned a little bit about that both in just studying, but then we also took a road trip. And the Community Foundation paid for a bus for us to all go. And we took 2 commissioners, some staff, some community expertise, and partners in that bus. And we went out and learned in place from the people making that model work in Scott County, particularly in Shakopee. We really felt that that model holds some promise for us here in Kandiyohi County. And we continue to have conversations and research ways that we could explore that model for implementation. Even if we used the entirety of the fund to do that, that would not be enough to do a family resource center. And so we're really have to think collaboratively and in partnership ways about other levers, financial levers that we could potentially push. We also really felt like the family resource model that we saw was very focused on early childhood through that elementary age. And we really want our model here to be much wider because the DAC funding really came around adulthood and that transition to adulthood. A lot of the kinds of things that Dolores was just sharing. So we want to make sure that we maybe deploy it in a community resource center model versus simply a family resource center model. We also toured a targeted neighborhood-based model in St. Cloud that while we love that model, it's not really an aligned fit for the use of this fund. And so when you're in an exploration mode, some things stay in the basket and some things come out of the basket. And that one is definitely out of the basket. So that was a helpful exercise. In addition, you have some pretty exemplary staff at Health and Human Services who are very well connected to what's going on in the community. And so they have been doing quite a bit of what I would call informal surveying, checking in with providers, checking in with their colleagues on teams, and identifying where are gaps, where are challenges that our consumers are facing, the clients that they're trying to serve, and getting a handle on that. And I think all of you just had a chance to see firsthand what the technology systems look like when you're trying to navigate access to care. And it's not ideal for your staff or for our consumers, right? And so we've been talking about service coordination, service navigation, the potential for technology improvements that could potentially really impact persons in the disability space, their guardians, conservators, trying to think about holistically all the people that support persons with special needs. We have been talking about telehealth access and what happened when the Affordable Connectivity Act ceased funding people who need that service for telehealth and how they're trying to afford technology again on their own. You heard it from Dolores, and I'll just echo transportation continues to be such a challenge. And if you are a person with special needs, it's doubly a challenge. Particularly evening, weekend transportation for them to have lives outside of the normal business day is really challenging. And so I don't have a solution for you yet, board, but we are really trying to navigate that with the partners and think through what would that mean. And we're also continuing to check in for those small impact grants. If something comes up in the community, I bring it immediately to your staff team and say, what do you think about potentially using some of the fund to do something like that? You asked that they be the decision makers, and they are the decision makers. We are just their guides and their partners, and we hold the assets on your behalf. So at this point, I would stand for any questions or answer any questions.
Right, thank you, Commissioner Anderson.
Yeah, so you talked about transportation. Do you contact Central Community Transit at all?
We do.
Because they do also have a volunteer service that maybe could help. I don't know.
We do. And your staff are really great about making sure that those providers, those parents, those consumers themselves know about those services. Ideally, I think, if we could get a couple more cars in the hands of those folks who are willing to drive, but they don't necessarily want to drive their vehicle. I think that could be a strategy that seems to hold some merit. And so don't be surprised if we come back and make some sort of a recommendation through your staff team about doing something like that.
Commissioner Berg.
Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, thank you for what you're doing. And I do recognize it takes time to get these programs worked out and going forward as we want them to go and intended. And just to review some with you too, we just had this presentation about AIM, and that's really what these dollars were focused on, the 600,000, almost $600,000 that was the county donated to your organization, which we're excited about doing that. And that these are dollars from the DAC, like you mentioned, and was really trying to target that group as a disability group. And I think as we move forward, keeping that in mind, as we look at the Family Resource Center, that's going to be the focus there, or the AIM and those types of groups as well. But was there also some talk about some possible big funding requests? If somebody wanted to, an organization sounded really sound and start another DAC, they could probably look at that as well with your committee.
I think they could certainly make a pitch to the staff team that is the lead advisory group for the fund. And I don't have a sense that any of us would be opposed to having those conversations at all. When we think about that Family Resource Center, it's going to need an anchor or a couple of anchor tenants to sort of keep that operating. And maybe that's a great spot for Valoris and the team from AIM to come over and be one of those anchor tenants at no cost. So now that really great return on that investment becomes even better because they're not paying overhead. And so there are lots of little nuances that we can explore on how we assemble that puzzle together. We're still trying to figure out a little bit of what the puzzle looks like. But the answer has never been no. If somebody really came to us with a legitimate need that would increase the number of people being served, maximize the way that they can be served currently, or fill a pressing need, we have been able to find either through donor-directed dollars, through the Community Foundation, through some innovative funding that Caroline and Kelsey have been able to find, we've been able to meet their needs and still protect the corpus of this fund so that you all can make a generational or transformational decision.
And we mentioned earlier about a committee, and what is that committee going to look like when you get it all formed up and make a request to the committee?
It's I think it kind of depends. Right now, we're treating that group that went and visited the Family Resource Center as the extended advisory team, because these are folks like from MMDC and from UCAP and from CCT and some of those partners that are really going to have to help build that puzzle. But in reality, your staff are the lead advisors. So they would bring that decision back, I would imagine, to you for verification, ratification, and direction. And then we would enact that, whether it's a part of the fund or the whole.
And one more question. Special Olympics, have they made some requests? And,
they have made
and would they be appropriate?
They have made a request to us for uniforms, and part of the challenge there was we needed to talk to all of the Special Olympics teams to do that with equity. One team needed something, one team didn't, and so we're still navigating a little bit of that, but I found some resources to help in the interim.
I just want to ask to clarify the funding that helped with AIM. Did that come out of this fund?
No.
Well, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Did you have any questions? Anybody else have any questions? And I know it's been a while, so I appreciate the. I think it was before Larry left, right?
right as Larry's
so
leaving.
about 18 months ago. And as I recall, and I may not be recalling correctly, there was going to be a board of directors that was going to be established that included family members of some of the clients that used to be out. Has that board been established, and who are some of the members? Or do you have a report that show who the board members are?
There was not going to be a board, it would be an advisory committee. That's how all of these funds work. It is at the discretion of your staff right now who is on that advisory team. We do have consumers who were part, or guardians of consumers that were part of those tours. So I don't foresee a reason why we wouldn't include people of that nature. We are just really trying to, like I said, it feels a little, in my opinion, it's slightly preliminary to give them something to evaluate when we don't have, I would say, things firmly fleshed out yet. The advisory group that's working on things and the staff team that is really getting those day-to-day replies and responses, there's not a recommendation yet. And so when we're getting closer to recommendation status, that's when I think that advisory committee could give us a better, that 360 look before decisions are made.
So not a board, but an advisory committee. Who is the advisory committee?
That's okay.
Right. So at this point, the advisory committee consists of the county commission, or the county administrator, the director of human services, the director of the staff supervisor, Melissa Helgeson, is on that team, and myself. We are the regular advisors. And then the community level advisors include Commissioner Burke, Commissioner Gardner, and members from the MMDC, UCAP, the EDC, CCT, and 2 parents. So that's really where we're at.
And you also mentioned staff and partners. Staff would be our staff?
Correct.
Okay. And partners would be?
The community members that I just mentioned, the community
So
foundation.
the advisory committee and the partners are pretty much the same.
Correct.
Wasn't there, and again, it's been a while, wasn't there a desire to have families involved?
There is a family advisory committee that works directly with Melissa's team at Health and Human Services, and that is the family group that's being used at this time.
One more question before I ask regarding the budget. So has any of the original money been expended on any of the requests?
No. We've been able to use private and other sources to cover everything.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner.
Well, thank you. Yes, as I said earlier too, it does take time to put things together. Maybe like in 6 months, we can kind of get an update about how a little more detail, the actual Human Services Department Advisory Committee. Be informed and work with you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate what you're doing.
All right. Well, thank you for coming in, and thank you for that report. We look forward to further developments.
As do we. Thank you.
All right. Next up, Lutheran Social Services STAY program. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Angela Matesky, and I am the Director of Wilmer Youth Services for Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota. Quite the mouthful.
Did you say Wilmer Youth Services?
Yes. So I'm here today to talk to you about the Region 6 STAY Big Idea program, which is funded by STAY funds. This program is a collaboration between Lutheran Social Service, Candy Ojai County, and 7 other counties in our social service region. Candy Ojai County acts as the fiscal agent for these dollars. Over the last year, this program has served 42 youth who have been in out-of-home placement for a minimum of 30 days after their 14th birthday, through youth up to the age of 23, with individualized support based on their needs. The youth's needs are determined by the youth and their supportive adults. Services provided in this program include regularly scheduled meetings, usually weekly, for independent living skills training and goal attainment tasks, as well as identifying and solidifying relationships with healthy, supportive adults. Our program achieves positive outcomes through meeting youth where they are at, providing the opportunity to add an additional safe and supportive adult to their lives. Providing access to an environment that meets youth needs, allowing for mistakes and learning. Collaborating with county case managers to help youth connect with resources and reach their full potential. Employing a person-centered approach and walking alongside youth to model skills which decrease barriers and increase success. Part of what we do is we offer several one-day activities for youth each year, which provide a learning experience that's embedded in a fun activity and an opportunity for youth to practice social skills with other youth in out-of-home placement. So in spring, my staff offered a spring fling. Approximately 19 youth and 8 staff were in attendance. Some of those staff are from a local placement facility. The targeted learning was to teach youth about the Youth Leadership Council, which is an opportunity for older foster youth to affect changes in foster care, the way foster care is run, in laws, things like that, and it's a statewide opportunity. And so we always feed youth. You feed them, they will come. So we always feed the youth. So that day our plan was that we were going to grill hamburgers and hot dogs. And we had a couple of youth that were really excited to practice doing this with staff supervision. And so, yeah, a little bit funny. We can't get the grill started. So no matter what we do, we all try, grill won't start, right? So there we are, a group of professionals tasked with teaching independent living skills, and we can't even start a grill. So we did what most people in that situation would do. We called a dad, and one of the staff's dad came and he got the grill started. So that was good. 19 youth waiting for the burgers. So after we finished eating, then the youth got to hunt eggs. So we had prizes in eggs. Many of those prizes were donated by local businesses. So they had cards for free French fries and a free meal. And then some had candy. And then after that, we organized them. And we got a group of 15 to 22-year-old youth to play red light, green light, and Simon Says. And it was the most fun. I was laughing, I was crying, I was laughing so hard. You have never seen young people so competitive over elementary schoolyard games in your life. They were just like, come on, come on. So anyhow, we did have prizes, so that probably helped the competition. So anyhow, in 2021, the Improve Group released the results of a year-long study on the Big Idea programming in Minnesota. The study demonstrated that foster youth participating in Big Ideas more frequently reported higher levels of desirable outcomes compared to both state and national averages. These outcomes included lower rates of pregnancy, homelessness, substance use referrals, and incarceration, and higher rates of being able to identify at least one adult that they could go to for advice and support. In addition to the positive outcomes highlighted by the Improve Group, we have seen in our programming that by collaborating on a Big Idea, our social service region has nearly doubled our annual stay allotment. Big Idea direct funds are fluid and easily moved between counties based on need. Last year, counties and LSS were able to fill 60 requests for direct youth needs, otherwise known as normalcy funds. These covered things such as school sports equipment, driver's ed costs, and employment attire. We see youth returning to seek support from our staff and assistance and advice, sometimes after they have been out of our programming for an extended period of time. We see youth building greater confidence and participating in volunteer opportunities. Youth are obtaining milestones, getting permits, passing classes, opening bank accounts, obtaining employment, completing classes, and maintaining relationships and placements. Youth who do not trust easily are building relationships with my staff. Youth are obtaining and maintaining housing and learning to access resources that will continue to support that stability. Through the collaboration between county case managers and LSS staff, youth participating in the Big Idea program are achieving ILS milestones that will support their transition out of care and provide them the opportunity to experience successful adult lives. If they stumble or they hit a bump in the road, they can come back to us and we can help them figure it out as funding allows us to continue to serve youth through the age of 23. I could go on, but instead, I will sum this up. I will sum the Big Idea program successes in the words of a youth I was speaking to yesterday. So as I was preparing this, I was a little nervous and I wasn't sure what to say. So I came out to the youth and I said, why do you come back? Why do you come back to work with my staff? The youth said, "If I need help, you will help me. Or if you can't, you'll find someone who will." It feels good. I can just talk about stuff, even things I don't tell other people, and it still feels safe. I think it's because everyone here just wants to see you succeed. So,
Well, thank you very much for that report. And so there is a contract for us to approve here
yes.
from the state of Minnesota. Are you going to present that or, okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Caroline Kahn. I have the opportunity to serve as the Health and Human Services Director, and today I'd like to put forth the opportunity to continue our partnership with LSS on behalf of our region and grant the funding that comes to us to LSS to continue our relationship so the program that you just heard about can maintain. So our allocation for this funding year will be $111,600. And we would like to direct those funds to maintain this program with Lutheran Social Services.
So this seems like a bit of a no-brainer. And again, to Commissioner Dale Anderson's question of why do we have to approve this, but I guess it's in statute. And we'll get back to you, Angie. I'm sorry I made the comment about the contract. I wanted to give you an opportunity to answer questions too. But as long as we're on the contract, I'd entertain a motion to accept the contract.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Commissioner Berg moves on the contract for Lutheran Social Services. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson, second. Any discussion?
Yep, Mr. Chair. I have-
Go ahead, Mr.
What does they stand for?
Successful transition to adulthood for youth.
Okay, thank you.
All right, and let's do the contract and then we'll have Angie answer other questions. Questions on the contract or on the motion on the floor?
Well, yeah, I guess it's all together. Just to clarify, this is renewing a grant we've had already.
Correct.
So it's not a new grant because I saw the date on it of July 1st. So we should have probably had this before. Or...
Yes, through the transitions within our department, this didn't make it before the funding period began. So this is allowing for that funding period to begin July 1st, moving forward. To maintain that consistency.
Thank you. Thank you.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So again, if anybody has any questions about the program, for Angie. Well, again,
I'll just say
Commissioner
what,
Anderson.
I think it's a great thing that you're doing this for the foster. It's for foster children, right? Yeah. So I think that's just great that you're helping out for that. So.
And Lutheran Social Services has been around a long time, and we've worked with the organization for many, many years, and so appreciate the continued relationship. And so thank you again for coming in.
Thank you. You've been around. We've been around and had this relationship for so many years that I was actually in this program as a young person.
Oh, the testimony
Okay.
that is. So
Okay.
thank you again.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Public Works Director on a resolution 2024-23.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I'm Mel Odens, Public Works Director for Kennewick County. What I've got before you is a resolution for you to consider for supporting a application for a TED grant, which stands for Transportation Economic Development. And the purpose of these grants is to provide an economic opportunity or support an economic opportunity, in this case, transportation, for an area that you might want to develop. Now, the risk you run in all of these is that you look for opportunities to do this project that we're looking at is to extend the 4-lane from Highway 71 west 2.5 miles, which you would go to our County Road 5, which would be the southwest part of Wilmer. It would be the connection or the extension of the 4-lane of the Wilmer Y. So you might recall we've done a lot of projects in this area. We've done a little over $63.5 million worth of work down there. We had the Wilmer Y. We did the bridge over 23. We did the ramps last year. We're doing the bridge over the railroad tracks, Burlington Northern, next year. So there's been a lot of investments. So I feel the tug along with the Highway 23 Coalition that this is their #1 construction project. They've got two other projects that they support, but they're more planning projects, one in Foley and one in Marshall North. This is their number one construction project, and Senator Klobuchar has included it on her list for the CDS, for the Congressional Directed Spending Funds. So for our county, we've been a recipient of a lot of support from the coalition, a lot of support from the work that's been done all the way from Sioux Falls to Hinckley. However, when you go after funds, that means you don't have all the funds, okay? And so when you don't have all the funds, you depend on other funding sources, namely the CDS through the federal side, the TED money through the deed, through support from the local other governments. We haven't approached the city or other agencies, but we are of a shortfall because this project is going to probably be somewhere in the $1 million to $12 million range. So the administrator and I have talked about this, like there's a caveat to this. We support it with risk, if you will, right? Because if we don't get it, we are the fiscal host of the money. And then there's also a deliverability, because this is a project, I believe it is got to be used by 2027. And when you do a larger state project with federal dollars, there's processes, there's permits, there's a lot of things that go on. So, but I do feel a strong tug that we should support this with this resolution, with the caveat that it's deliverable and we can get the funds. So is there any questions on that?
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So this should be a fairly simple project because the base is already there, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Simple but not inexpensive.
Yeah. I mean, this was something that was started almost 50 years ago, right? I mean,
Correct, right. And it appears
long overdue.
You know, it appears probably much simpler than it might be, you know, because the grading is done. They would have to redo some grading, but then all the regulatory new laws, you know, runoff and drainage and cultural resources, and all the things come into play. Yes.
Commissioner Bird.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Would I be correct in saying that this is one of the last big pieces of putting this all together to complete this project?
Yeah, it is.
And it's essential that we try to move in this direction if we can afford it and if it's a good time for it.
Yeah, it is really. When you get the railroad bypass, you get the ramps built, you get our bridge over the railroad tracks built. We built the bridge some years ago over Highway 23. So I mean, all the pieces are coming together. So this would be just to extend the 4-lane, and I think it would be a driver expectation. Quite honestly, you're not used to coming onto a 2-lane road with a ramp. You know, I mean, that can be confusing.
Yep.
So yes. So it's my recommendation, Mr. Chair, to approve this resolution 2024-23.
You heard staff's recommendation on resolution 2024-23. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I will move passage of resolution 2020.
Commissioner Gardner moves on 2024-23. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds, and I'm going to keep the floor open for further questions or comments. And I think Administrator Baker, I think I noticed your hand go up or not. It was something.
Yeah. Maybe Mel, if you just want to make sure, clarify that comment or that sentence within the resolution that we worked on it's kind of contingent that we would secure other funds. You want to explain that a little bit more?
So if you look at, it would be the last paragraph on the first page. It says, is committed to be the fiscal sponsor and work with others to secure the required match dollars and additional amounts needed to fully fund the project. This is not unlike probably most projects when you approve it. It's just that when you are the fiscal host, there is an element of responsibility that if you get all these other dollars lined up and you're, we'll say $2-3 million short, somebody's going to call the question: do you finish it, or do we? that's the risk. I just want to make sure we're completely open about that.
Commissioner Gardner, did you have your hand up?
I did. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mel, we just recently had another fatality out in that area, and for that reason alone, all of the work that we've done to mitigate that risk to this point, this is just in further support of that, and let alone the economic benefits, economic development benefits that are going to come out of this. It's going to be a much better connection to the Wilmer Y area and the rail park and and that entire area. So I'm fully in support of this request.
Yeah, what are the scoring criteria are a transportation benefit, check. Measurable economic benefit, check, because it opens it up to the park. Outside funding, check. And then is it reducing risk? And I think to your point, very much so, because that was a head-on collision on a 2-lane road at the exact termini right there. I mean, it really does hit the marks.
Thank you.
And I think this really illustrates the importance of the advocacy that we do both at the state capitol and in Washington. But we all need to understand that I think we're all supportive of this. I said this a long time ago that this would probably be the bow on top of a $60-70 million investment out in that area. The good news is Mayor Reese, city of Wilmer, has been advocating for this for like 20 years. So I'm sure the city is going to be willing to step up for a good share. But the point of this is there is a great deal of funding that has to be found beside the 4.5, in rough numbers is a third. So where does the rest of that money come from? And while other entities, neighboring entities, even Highway 23 Coalition will be great cheerleaders, we don't know if they have any money to contribute to the project. So that's the part we're going to have to figure out is where do we get the additional funding to close that gap on this project?
You are exactly right, but that's part of our challenge every year on construction. So
we have 3 years to do it.
Yeah, we will go after it, and the good thing it is on the senator's list. It has made the list, and so we feel good about that.
So one of the questions I have kind of goes back to what Commissioner Dwayne Anderson said. The grade is there. Basically, we're putting pavement on the grade. But now that it's been this many years, and since then we've got the archaeological issues, we've got settling basins. Will they have to be considered before pavement goes on? In other words, might there be some basins, settling ponds that have to be built?
There would be. Yeah.
So if we don't move any dirt other than basins, the archaeological part probably would be pretty simple.
Correct. And then if there's any right-of-way acquisition, those are the things that just take time.
And the other thing I think that we need to note about this, and basically after today, how much commitment we're going to have is that this one would get under the bar of the greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled mandate that would add even further dollars to this, correct?
And that would be a very good reason. And I did not say that, but to get it into the program if we so chose, because you would avoid some increased regulatory requirements coming up with the greenhouse gas and vehicle mile traveled.
Yep. And I 100% support this. I just want all of us to understand what we're supporting and what we might be facing to finish it. So further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor of resolution 2024-23 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Oden. Let's take a 5-minute break. We'll reconvene the Canyon County Board of Commissioners. Up next on the agenda is the Planning Commission recommendation. Mr. Van Dyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Eric Van Dyken, County Zoning Administrator, here today with 2 action item requests for you relating to or pursuant to the August 12th meeting of the Planning Commission. It was a fairly short meeting. We had 2 requests related to rezoning this time, which we don't get all that terribly often. And I can't remember in what order I put them on, but I'm going to do the Hillcrest first, if that's okay. The current owners of Hillcrest, the Prentice family that's owned up there for many years, is in the process of selling that property. And as the buyers are doing their due diligence, they called me one day and said, "Why is our property zoned residential?" I said, "Well, it's an accident of history. Essentially, it's kind of just how that property was originally platted, and then it was authorized for its use under what regime, I'm not quite sure, but it just continued. And typically the county doesn't go behind and kind of mop those up. We respond to landowner requests. So at this time, to try to make sure that as they begin their ownership and open up the possibilities that might come with that for them, they've requested that the Hillcrest property be rezoned from an R2 community residence district to a CI commercial industrial district. The Planning Commission did unanimously recommend approval. There are no conditions typically with a rezone, so the findings, as you see in the minutes, would be the recommended adoption from the Planning Commission and that staff recommendation as well.
So you heard recommendation from staff regarding the rezone of the Hillcrest property and the findings therein. I entertain a motion to accept that recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I so move with the findings.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves on the request, acknowledging the findings. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. The second request is that of Daniel Anderson. This is a property located down on in the bottom end of what's commonly known as Jonesville, down on South Highway 71, just north of Dan's Diesel there. Mr. Anderson owns the far south property, which is not part of the Jonesville plat. And he also owns the 2 properties north of that are in the Jonesville plat. Currently, he is desirous of building an outbuilding, a detached accessory building, and he has some size limitations based on his zoning. He wants to be able to add to his agriculturally zoned property to now allow him to build a little bit bigger building. And so the request is to rezone the far south part of that 2 residential properties that he owns into an ag district, so he can join it or actually reference it to his other property and treat them as one, thereby allowing him to build a little bit different size building. And in as much as it's kind of clipping one off the end, the Planning Commission did not see any overall concerns there. Typically, we wouldn't probably pluck one right out of the middle of a string of zoning like that, but clipping one off the end and making it zone consistent with that, which is to its south and east and west, was not deemed to be a spot zone or a concern. So the Planning Commission also recommends approval with the findings as you see for this request.
And again, there are no conditions on this.
That's correct.
I'd entertain a motion for staff recommendation on the rezone.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to approve the request based on the findings as presented.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. Any discussion?
Just
Go ahead.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So both the properties on both sides, they also own both those properties, right?
Yeah, Mr. Anderson owns the property to the south. That will be the one that he's now referencing this parcel to or joining it to legally. So we'll do that.
That is ag one.
Yeah, that is an
okay.
ag one. So this is kind of making it consistent with that one he owns to the south.
Thank you.
The further north one remained residential and is developed residentially separately.
Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, Prairie Lakes Youth Program Report. Administrator Baker.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kelsey Baker, Candioi County Administrator. Executive Director Holly Booth is unable to attend today, so I am here presenting on her behalf. She's included request letters within your board packet, so you've had time to review those. The two letters that she included are to place an office trailer for temporary purposes on the property, on the north side of that property in the parking lot, and then to pause on the lease payments that are stated within the contract. And those monthly payments that the county does get is $6,082. And so that would be split. Thought I would leave it up to the board. If you're comfortable, we would do a 60-40 split, just because of how these two properties sit. The east property, the secure building, has the parking lot, so it has more space. So for to clean and things like that. So we would just cut it down, do the 60-40 split based off that. And Holly Booth was okay with that. I spoke with her yesterday. And so she seemed okay with that. And so the request for action on these two, number one and number two, we would need action on, and you can do that in one overall action, or if you want to take them two separately, that would be up to you. And then the other two requests, number 3 and 4, I thought I would talk about afterwards, because it would probably merit a little bit more discussion regarding the direction from the fire.
So I'm going to recommend that we treat number 1 and 2 separately, just because there'll be some probably some discussion. So the first request is for the Prairie Lakes Youth Program to place an office trailer on the 1808 property, and again, that's the damaged building, correct? The 1808.
Correct.
No,
1804. Okay. 1804 and 1808, and there's still one. They have one unit number though, Unit 29, with Midwest. It's very confusing.
I know it is. That's what I'm asking. So will this trailer be like in the parking lot?
Yep, on the north parking lot.
Very good. So go ahead, Commissioner.
Nope.
All right. So the request and the action I'd ask for is to approve the placement of an office trailer on the 1808 property.
Mr. Chair, I also move to approve permission to put the trailer in the parking lot.
So Commissioner Berg moves on the request. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion?
I got.
Go ahead.
So that building is right now, they can't use any part of it basically.
No.
Okay, so it gets fixed or whatever.
Correct. Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Commissioner Berg.
I just want to clarify that this isn't going to be a long-term type of placement there. This is going to be extra office space because we've lost the office space in the facility. So it'll be a temporary thing, and it shouldn't affect anything that I'm aware of. Right.
One more.
Okay, Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
Yeah, so I just have one more question. I realize we maybe don't know this yet, but do you know approximately how long this trailer will be needed there? Because I'm okay with it, but we got to do something at the same time. And do you have any estimate on time-wise how long that trailer will be there?
Well, and that is a good question. I think based off the Prairie Lakes Youth Board meeting, this is a temporary trailer for temporary office space. Currently, they're renovating one of their existing other properties to have in place of the non-secure, and that's where this next request comes into place. They're thinking that will take 6-7 months, give or take, to renovate that, and then once that property is completed, then they'll be able to have office place out of that facility. And so we're going in with this mindset, and Holly and Andy and I have discussed this. We're really going in with this mindset that this is all temporary. And temporary doesn't mean 5 years. But in this case, temporary doesn't mean just 6 months either. We have to maybe think about what that long-term plan looks like, but we also have to look at a short-term and a long-term plan.
Okay, so hopefully less than 2 years. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
because longer than that, I'd get a little worried.
Yes. I hope it's not 2 years.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Good answer. Because the Prairie Lakes Youth Program is paying rent for that building too, and it's not cheap. So there's an incentive to end that agreement soon. as soon as we can. And I think actually the goal is really the first of the year, if we could be in the other facility. That's going
Correct.
to be a big.
That's the goal, is to get there by January. But with any kind of even small, large, medium-sized renovation projects, you get some hiccups. And so, like I said, they're hoping to be in there 6-7 months.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Now, before we act on the next request, you mentioned $6,000 a month, is it?
Mhm.
Okay, is that for both buildings?
Correct.
And that's the reason for the 60-40 split, because I think I heard you say the pause would only be on the damaged building or on everything.
The pause would only be on the damaged buildings.
That's the 40%.
Correct.
So 6 times 4, $2,400.
About $2,400. My notes over there. It's on the notepad. Sorry.
All right. So
About $2,400.
So I'm going to make an attempt to formulate the request. I would entertain a motion to allow the Prairie Lakes Youth Program to pause their lease payments of approximately $2,400 a month on the 1804 building. For how long? How long?
I would say 7 months, and if it's longer than that, I'll bring this back to the board.
Okay. For a period of 7 months. Did you get that, Melissa?
I did.
All right.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the request. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Berg seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right. You want to go on to 3 and 4 then, or is that?
Yeah, so the next request was the request for direction of what work should be arranged or prepared for based off with the insurance for the 1804 building following the fire and flood. And so I think that maybe I'm looking for some guidance from the board. I've worked with Andy, I've worked with Holly. We have a facilities committee in place. We also have a commissioner that sits on the Prairie Lakes Youth Board. The Candioi County owns the structure, but Prairie Lakes Youth Programs operates the business side of things. And so I'm looking for direction if I can bring this back to the facilities committee and work with Ms. Booth on the arrangements that we would work on with the insurance. Like I said, they're putting their non-secure business in one of their existing buildings that they currently own. And so it would really be up to the county if they were to sever this lease altogether. It really would be up to the county then of what we want to do long term. However, there's that caveat that if Prairie Lakes doesn't want to sever that lease, then the county will continue working with Prairie Lakes. So there's a lot of chicken and the egg, or the cart and the horse right now. So not trying to get ahead of Prairie Lakes, we're trying to work alongside each other. And so I'm looking for guidance from the board. Would it be best to work with the facilities committee on kind of the steps moving forward? I have attended a Prairie Lakes Youth Board meeting. I've heard some mixed answers amongst commissioners, and so I'm looking for some guidance on who would like to be a part of that.
Let me ask a question before we go there. You're talking about insurance. Do both entities
Hold insurance for it?
I'm guessing that we have the property insurance, but they have insurance perhaps on the contents, and maybe they have interruption. No?
They hold the property insurance through MCIT as well.
Even though we own the property, they insure the property.
Correct.
So the premium or the benefits of the insurance will be paid to Prairie Lakes.
No, I think it would,
It would come directly to us though.
because we are the
sole
of the
owner.
building. So that was part of the
Yeah,
release.
but they did file the insurance claim because we own the property. Andy has been working with the adjuster, but Prairie Lakes Youth Program was the entity that filed the claim.
So do they have ownership of that insurance proceeds, or does the county?
I would have to verify, but I don't want to say on the record, I would say the county. But because we have this lease and they haven't severed it, that's where I said the eggs and the chicken. I'm trying to work alongside them. But if they're going to sever the lease, then it's up to the county on what we would do with those dollars or building.
So again, I'm gonna let you shed some light on this, but you know, most insurance companies and MCID isn't like most insurance companies. You have to put the proceeds of the insurance towards the repair of what is insured.
Mr. Chair, thank you. That is my understanding too, but I have no, no, people are shaking their head. I'm not sure if just that, as we were talking about, it's my understanding, but I am no expert on this either. But you're looking for some direction which way to go. And my thought is that this is, like you said, a very complicated thing the more you look at it, because from this point of view, you know, I think Prairie Lakes Youth Program would probably like to eventually sever that lease. I'm not sure exactly when that would take place. And it's all hinged upon, too, it gets more complex because of it was used for instructions for education from the Wilmer School District. And so then that's a need that we have. So even if Prairie Lakes wants to sever the lease on that building, we still have a need for this, and what are going to be use of that building? Do we have to look at the needs of the building? So I'm thinking there's so many little pieces about the building that we don't know yet, you know, in detail of what it would take to cost to repair it or to tear it down or whatever we do with that building. And I would think that a good idea or direction would be have a short work session after we get some additional information of the value of the building, the shape of the building, how the insurance is going to come out on this. And I think we need to proceed with that. I would be interested in having some input in that. And I'd like to add too that you and I have been working together on this as well going forward, being on that joint power. So I'm wearing two hats here, but I'm also thinking what's the best interest for the county as well.
And to
it's
clarify,
complicated.
Go ahead.
your question, at the Prairie Lakes Youth Board meeting, Commissioner Patzer, he's a Lacoparle County Commissioner, sits on Prairie Lakes Youth Board. He also sits on the MCIT board. That question that you asked, Commissioner Imdyke, regarding if we would get those dollars, even if we don't, let's say we don't do any of the repairs, my understanding was that he said MCIT would still issue money towards the repair, whatever you would do. Andy and I have recently had conversations because this is a historic building. What would that look like with SHPO? You know, a lot of times if you put a hammer in a government building wall, you have to bring everything up to code. This would be classified as a repair, not necessarily a renovation. So we might be able to sneak by with that, but we would still have to be really cautious of that. I think Commissioner Berg really said the word that describes this, that this is complex. As of right now, Prairie Lakes has not severed their contract. They're asking to pause the payments, which the county board just approved. So that is what we're acting on behalf. I haven't had conversations with Holly Booth or Prairie. I think you have a board meeting this week.
Yes, we do.
Yes, you have a board meeting tomorrow.
Yes.
And so maybe there will be more information that comes out of that. And so at this time, I am just looking at what our options could be. I've had conversations with Midwest, with Joanna Schrupp. I'm making sure that we're looking at this from all angles, because I think if they were to sever this contract, then it would be up to the county board on what we do with this building. And so that's why I'm kind of investigating what our options could be, and also working with Prairie Lakes. If they do not sever this lease, what would that look like long term as well? If they still would like to utilize this building in some way, shape, or form, would that be like Commissioner Berg was saying, an idea with the school, and Prairie Lakes modifies this lease. So this is really complex. There's a lot of things that are going on right now. And so I guess the direction that I was looking for, if you would want me to just continue working with Commissioner Berg, I can so do that. Maybe that depends. If they sever their lease, maybe then I go work with the facilities committee, is I guess what my recommendation would be, is that I can continue working with Commissioner Berg on the building projects. And then if they do sever the lease, we bring that to the facilities committee to have two commissioners more involved.
So, and to add complexity to it, the building we toured about a month ago is also in need of a lot of, I mean, it's in terrible shape. I would recommend that you continue to work with Prairie Lakes, and that we do this because there's two commissioners already on the facilities committee. And Corky's not on the facilities committee, but he's on the Prairie Lakes Youth Board. I'd recommend that we do it in a work session where we can get Prairie Lakes at the table and we can be, and Andy and be in the room and understand all the complexities and get our questions answered, do it as a work session. So for now, I think it makes sense for you to continue to work with Commissioner Berg and Prairie Lakes, and then we gather as a work session.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I like to just add to that too. There's so many pieces we're missing, you know. How much damage as a board we don't know that. And neither does Prairie Lakes, you know, what that would involve, you know. Does it just involve the roof? Does it the asbestos in the ceiling that's gonna be replaced, and the insurance will probably cover that, new insulation. Is the heat pump, wasn't that affected too? No. Okay, where did I hear that?
No, that's,
The lightning strike affected the heat pump?
and he is still, it's so complex and so in depth that he's still working on getting numbers put together.
Yeah, I mean, because of the electrical aspects of it, could have been highly impacted.
Yeah,
They may have to repair the heat pump, maybe the alarms and so forth, and some of the electrical stuff too.
That's all Prairie Lakes.
And that's all insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not knowing exactly what's all got to be done and how much insurance would cover, what affects us too. What do we decide to do with the building? And again, it's going to be expensive. I understand, and this is where I think in a work session we'd have more time to talk about this and give you more time to get more specific numbers. You know, the concerns are about the windows is what approximately I went down around 100 windows there. And I heard from you, I thought it'd be, you know, about $10,000 a window.
Quite that bad, but
Well, you said $1 million, so yeah, okay. So we need specifics on that to see what we would go. And so I think since it does involve myself and Prairie Lakes Youth Program indirectly, because they still can back out the lease. What do we want to do with that building then? And because what we do with the building could affect Prairie Lakes as well. So it is kind of complex.
Commissioner Green.
My question would be, is it secure right now? I mean, is it waterproof now, or is it leaking when it rains, or what's being done in the meantime?
There's a cover on the roof, so there's no leaking
There's a
now.
cover, so we got a little time if we
Yes.
want to kind of decide what to do. Because normally when we're planning something like this, it takes maybe a couple of years to plan it
Mhm.
and come up with what we want to do. But now with the fire and stuff, it's kind of push things up a lot. But I just want to make sure we're not letting the building go for now until we know what we want to do. So
Right, and I think there's always some confusion around this. I feel like coming into Candioi County that there's as a government entity as Candioi County, or if it's Chippewa County or McLeod County, the county might own the building, but the business side of it, they do the day to day. They put in those requests. We don't have a say in if they wanted to build that new building. That would come from Prairie Lakes Youth Board. And so Holly and I have really kind of streamed out that process on who should put in that request first. And so I think that we've really come to terms on that should really come from the Prairie Lakes Youth Board, because other juvenile detention centers their facilities are not just owned by counties. They might be owned by the joint powers. So there's many different models out there. There's a juvenile detention center up in Bemidji. That juvenile center that facility and their land is owned by the joint powers. And so we're looking at many different options. If Prairie Lakes down the road were to build a new facility, does Candioi County have to own it? We maybe don't have to. The joint powers could own it. So when we do say complex,
or even a third party.
correct. Yep. And so when we say complex, I will say Holly and I are looking at many different options and what would be the best route for Prairie Lakes Youth programs to continue another 20, 30 years. We want this program to continue. It's a very much needed program. This is something that helps our youth, that helps the future of our communities. We're not just partnering with the 5 joint power counties that are within this program. We help any county throughout the state. If we don't have juvenile detention centers like this, kids sit within the ERs, within our hospitals. And so we want to be able to sustain this program within our community, but we need to look at how do we do that moving forward, not just that short 5-year term. And so that's when I say we're looking at a short-term goal. We need to figure out what can we do in the meantime, but we also need to look at that 5 to 10 year. What is the best plan for this program to continue and the structure that is going to house these services that we provide, not just to these 5 counties, but to the entire state of Minnesota. And so that's working with corrections, that's working with human services.
School district.
The school district, that's working with our state and federal agencies. Other juvenile detention centers have been more aggressive with the Department of Corrections on getting funding. We are looking into that avenue that we can be more aggressive because this is needed. And so I'll get off my soapbox, but it's a really needed program. And we need a facility that is adequate also to house these adolescent kids that have experienced immense trauma in their life. So.
Thank you. Actually, we're starting to sound like a work session. And I would suggest maybe we would look at that going forward and maybe get some more pieces, because some of the pieces we're missing, maybe the school would want to lease that and pay rent there for the education. You know, that could be an option. Or, you know, as we're doing a building study, you know, is it, and I understand, and more information needed to get from you, Mr. Thorson, you know, is that the main and lower level isn't in too bad a shape. That could be almost used right away for education with minimal amount. I don't know, but this is a discussion we need for information that we could even start probably using that as a resource at this point, but also from a building needs and space needs, that this might kind of fall in that same thing, because we're going to be looking at that, is we can have some kind of preliminary idea, is that if it's feasible that we get it fixed up good enough, that yes, there would be expenses to the county, but would it be worth it for the value of that building? And it'd be interesting to have like a tour of the Dream, what's that called?
Dream Academy.
Dream Academy. See how they remodeled that and see what that looks like, and or tour one of the Midwest buildings, because they remodeled some of them, and get some idea of what expenses they went through, and see if the insurance would cover some of those expenses that they might have had to take on their own, and because the fire might have, you know, affected this, the insulation and so forth, and electrical and heat pumps or whatever.
I think I got my answer. I'll continue working with Commissioner Berg on that, and Andy. And
is this an action item though? Did you want us to?
Nope. We already took action on the items that we
kind
did.
of we continue to communicate and maybe have a work session coming up soon, because I do think it doesn't hurt for us to talk as a whole board, looking at some of the options on this, because it's like you said, it's complicated. Thank you.
All right.
You have a question?
Did you have a question, Commissioner Grant? All right. Up next, Andy Thorson.
Good morning, everybody.
Space study presentation.
Andy Thorson, Facilities Maintenance Director with the county. Everybody knows about the RFP that we did send out for space studies. We did receive 4 of them on June 28th from JLG Architectures for $84,500, Wold Architecture for $59,500, Engen for $39,000, and BKV Group for $16,950. We did review these within the facilities committee. We narrowed it down to 2, which was Wold and BKV Group. We invited both firms to present in person to the committee on July 20th, and both did. We visited again about it. I'm going to say we didn't come up with a consensus on who to choose. But for me, the comparison of BKV and Wold I really like Wold's project approach. Their detailed work plans, they're very thorough. I mean, it's 11 pages with 9 different steps. I mean, 11 pages in their document. And very detailed of what they'll be doing and what results we can expect from their work plans. BKV is 3 pages for their project approach with 6 steps. Wold's responsiveness, I've received at least a dozen calls from their project lead on this, basically talking about what the project would, look like. So they're very excited about it. And we get down to other things. BKV Group did not supply a not to exceed cost where all others did, which I did ask for. And they will be charging for extra meetings, travel, and stuff like that on top of their base cost. Wold cost, they submitted the not to succeed with no limits on meetings. He said, if I got to come out 20 times, we'll come out 20 times, and that's included in their base, their whole cost. Wold did say they would discount costs of our future services if we do go forward with Wold in the future. They would give us, discounts on future work that we do, where eventually we would recoup if we did enough projects. They said we bring that cost down to basically zero, but that would be quite a large project. And I do have a couple projects that I need to move forward with. My recommendation would be for Wool, but I'm sure either firm will do a fine job for the county. So I'm just going to leave it up to the board to make that decision on who I'll be working with.
So you've heard staff. Actually, I think I heard a recommendation on Wold, but with the alternative. And Commissioner Dale Anderson and I sit on the facilities committee, and there is stark differences, obviously, in the estimate between the two of them. Potentially stark differences too in what the scope of theirs. So BKV, and by the way, both of them are very reputable firms. BKV, I think, is working with Waseca County and Stearns County as we speak. And Wold is probably working with other counties in the region as well. BKV's, as I understood it, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was basically the space study, where Wold included the space study plus here's what we would do with that space.
Yeah. I mean, Wold's going to come in and they're going to come and give recommendations on here's what we can do to save money on your utilities. And now day and age, that's huge to me. And lots of different options they were going to give us.
And on the other hand, with BKV, they just present the study, and now you put an RFP out to architects to see how they would respond to that study. Am I capturing that?
No, that sounds about right.
Commissioner Dale Anderson, do you have anything you want to?
No, I think you kind of hit it.
So one of the questions for me that comes up is that in light of when we first started the proposed space study, that was before the fire over at Midwest Technology Campus. And now, given that, and regardless of whether or not Prairie Lakes Youth Program is a tenant of ours 2 years from now, is that space that should be studied as an option for maybe some of the overcrowded programs that are in this building or the downtown building or whatever. So would it make sense to amend the space? The RFP asked both firms to include that in as an amended study, because tell us what buildings were included in the RFP for this space study?
Yes,
Courthouse, downtown
courthouse,
office.
county office building, and this building. Speaking with Bold Architecture, just in conversation, he said, if in time you need to throw something else in there, that's fine. We'll take care of you. So, I mean, if I could reach out to Bold, but I'm thinking that they would just throw that in because it's not. They go by square feet, and that's not a lot of square feet when you talk here in downtown and the county office building altogether.
I wouldn't be very comfortable if that wasn't in some kind of, writing of what, if they, what they would throw in, but,
Would,
that would be.
would you want to ask the other organization if they would be willing to throw it in as well? And what was that?
But I'm guessing at that price,
Maybe,
they're already
so
gonna.
what was it?
They're already gonna want us.
One was 16,000, and what was the other one again?
59,000, and 16,950. That's where we have to pay them to drive out. We have to rent them a car to drive out. We're paying them hourly of like up to $195 an hour. So one meeting during the day for one person can get very expensive. And I'm guessing they're going to be coming in more than one person at a time.
On the other hand, $45,000 would go a long ways to covering those kind of costs.
But I in my own opinion, I like this is going to be your final cost. And from experience, I've learned it doesn't always pay to go with the low bidder.
If I may. I think one thing Andy and I have looked at, and coming from a county that had already done a space study and an analysis regarding all the buildings, I understand your two questions regarding amending this, the motion to include Prairie Lakes. A couple of my thoughts would be going with an architect firm that's going to do start to finish. You create a relationship. They understand who the county is, what we want to do, what our goals are. Even though staff might change or commissioners might change, they understand what the goal of the county board at the time from conception. That might fluctuate. You might have some moving pieces, but you're working with this firm from start to finish and you're creating that relationship. And it's not just creating a relationship with Andy or the commissioners, it's also creating a relationship when they're going in and doing these interviews with staff and talking with Pact 4 and talking with Community Corrections or HCBS division. Our staff feel confident that the board is looking at an organization that's we're not just going to do a space study and it's going to sit for 3 years. We might not build a new building, but we're going to look and maybe modify and move some things because we might have too much space here, but we might have too little space over here. To the Prairie Lakes Youth Program, I think at this point, when we're looking to consolidate departments, create more of an organization, I don't know if that would be in the best interest, but I would not say it's off the table. To move staff over there to utilize it. Could it be used for tenants or different things like that for leases? I know I did receive the letter from the city of Wilmer saying that they appreciate the initiative for the county to look at do this space study. They're still willing to work with us and look at different options of what we could possibly utilize together. And so I think what Andy and I spoke about this yesterday. I like where he was going, where I think it's fair to say to approve the motion today. And the more we find out about Prairie Lakes, then we bring this back. I think we wouldn't have that answer today unless you were thinking about postponing this motion. But those are some of my thoughts around making the motion today and supporting Andy's recommendation regarding this architect firm. Is relationships are really hard to come by sometimes in today's world. And we want our taxpayers and our staff and our board, everybody involved to make sure that we are doing the best thing for the future of Kandiyohi County. And so creating that strong relationship, I think will go a long ways.
Thank you, Commissioner Bird.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I have two questions. The first one is Ingen Associates, and they came in the middle between there. And we do have a relationship with them, and they're familiar with the facilities already, and actually kind of looked at some of the same things. So, you know, I was just kind of wondering why that wasn't included in this as well.
Not speaking for the whole committee, but you know, we looked at all of them and we want a big enough firm that can be a one-stop shop that has done larger projects that would, you know, say that has done small projects and large projects, whether it be just space studies, remodeling, or new construction, larger new construction. Engen really doesn't fit any of those categories. You know, yes, they're a great firm to work for. Have they did big projects? No. So we're looking for, do they have engineers on staff? No. And, you know, I'm looking to create a relationship with a firm that I can get all my information from, you know, one-stop shop for engineering, for electrical engineering, so forth, so on.
I'll go to Commissioner
Just a
Dale
follow-up.
Anderson first, and then
Just a follow-up question.
let's go to
Okay,
Dale first.
sure.
Well, we're discussing it, so I'm just gonna make a motion to go with staff recommendations to have Wold as our space study and engineering firm.
So we have a motion on the floor to go with Wold and Associates.
Second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. Discussion. Now I'll go back to you.
But just the other question. So Ingens is the only one that's a local,
Yes.
locally owned facility that we support. Okay.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson.
I just have one comment. You know, that BKV, it sounds really reasonable at first, but when you see plus expenses, that's what scares me. And when you said what they charge per hour, and if they want us to have the vehicles rented for them, and who knows what other expense, hotel and driving.
Yeah.
So that, you know, that can add up really quick. And so it could be way above this other, what Wold Architects is proposing.
Yeah, where they had, you know, they have us listed for 6 meetings, whereas Wold has 9. And plus, you know, they're talking, oh yeah, we'll meet with each even tenant, you know, in the Health Human Services, not just county employees, but other tenants that we lease to.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have every confidence, Andy, that you and all of the other staff have certainly done your due diligence on this. I can appreciate the desire not to be tripping over dollars, picking up pennies on this. If we're going to do this, if we're really serious about doing this type of an analysis, let's do it right the first time. We have cost certainty on this portion of it, even if it is at that relatively higher end. I think we can, a county of our size can reasonably expect that it's going to cost a little bit more to get what we actually need. And so I'm fully in support of the motion.
Mr. Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To me, it's really important that this be considered for a space study as one additional item. And I think that's really important that, and I like the idea that they'd walk through and look at it, but I really want to see that they take it serious, that this would be on equal ground, that we have a serious study, not because we might not want it that way or whatever, that they consider that as part of the project. And I'd like to see whoever does it, that we pursue that. And even if we have to add a small amount to it, I just think it's that important that we pursue that.
Are you talking about Prairie Lakes?
Yep, yes.
So
I guess just one thing, Roger. The biggest thing that, and the reason that I made the motion is the part that I like the most about seeing what Wold would do is the part that they're going to give us recommendations on what to do once we're done with the space study. Because I think, yeah, they can tell us we need more room here or not as much room there, but it's what should we do is part of the game here. And I think that's the thing that we didn't hear from the other ones is that they didn't give us that they're going to give us recommendations. And to me, that recommendations are probably worth more than the space study is. So I guess that's my 2 cents of why I made the motion and why I think it's important to go with Wold.
So the question, you go ahead, Bruce.
Sure.
Commissioner
And
Wilson.
actually, what you're saying, I think is the same reason that we just said it's a really compact situation with the Prairie Lakes building that we had the fire. And that we look at that from that point of view as well. And that be included
I
somewhere.
mean, would we wait on that until we find out what their plan is? Otherwise, if they plan to redo it and move back in there, well, then we're gonna be wasting our
So the challenge with that is though, is that we're gonna start over and now they said, well, that wasn't included, so now here's a new proposal for a space study. That's why it makes some sense in my
Yeah,
opinion, to
and-
pause and include that. And the space study.
The space study for Prairie Lakes, they've been talking about doing their own for quite a while, because that really falls on Prairie Lakes for just.
Right, but that building is our building.
Yeah, yeah.
So we
But-
need to do a space study on our building because it's potentially that Prairie Lake won't be there. If they terminate the lease and then we have a building that we have to do another space study. I have a question. So if we choose Wold for the space study, then once the space study is done, and if we go to the next step, is that reopen to other, will we reopen and have RFPs to architectural firms? So basically, if we choose Wold now, they pretty much have a captive audience.
Well,
We
not
can-
necessarily. Okay, go ahead.
We often, and I know it's a not to exceed on the space study, but then once the architectural plans go in, and anybody who's ever worked with an architect, one of the frustrations is that, real or not, there's a perception that they're going to get paid based on a percent of the total project, and so, they usually come with a Cadillac, even if you can only afford the Chevy.
I know Wold did a space study for, drawing a blank on the county, and they did a big, huge addition, and JLG came in and designed and built the building. So it's not guaranteed that, just because they do the space study, they're getting the long-term work. Will they get some other work from me? Yeah. I need some engineering for some roofs and, another small building that I can do.
And so I think at the facilities committee, we did bring up about, because of the fire, we did bring up about going back to them and saying, okay, can you put in writing what have we received that or haven't we received that?
Mhm.
Has it been requested?
No. What was the request?
What they would charge to do a space study on the units over on the Midwest Technology Campus?
I don't recall that.
We did talk about it.
I think.
Yeah,
you're-
so my comment would be on regarding the Prairie Lakes building. We don't know what Prairie Lakes wants yet, and maybe they need to do their own space study first, and if they don't want to have the building anymore, then it gets kicked to us. But I don't know that we should really do a space study on that now. We're kind of jumping the gun, I think, because we don't even know what we would do, and do we even want to have the building? We maybe want to just say, let's dispose of it. I mean, because we probably don't even have to do a space study in that case.
Well, that's a really good point, but we can say, here's what we do if they want it again, and here's what we do if they don't want it, and including, do we tear it down? And I've heard their sentiment for that. So, that space study would give us that, say, Prairie Lakes isn't going to be here, tear it down. But more importantly, even if we don't do it at this point, I think we should understand what it would cost if 6 months from now or 3 months from now, we want a space study on that, on those two properties over there. Before I can support the motion, because I don't know what that's gonna, I don't know who was first here. Commissioner Burrow.
I don't care.
Go ahead.
You should. But it's two separate things. I guess that's my concern about it. I get what you're saying, Roger, and I get what you're saying, Corky. 100% agree with you. But I think isn't it two separate things? Shouldn't we look at it as two separate things? I mean, I think we probably want to have that price to see what it is, but I think what we're talking about today is just for these buildings, and then maybe we need to have that price and then bring that back to another meeting and say it's going to cost us $5,000 to do that extra space study, and then address it in another motion that way. That's my only question.
Thank you. Yes, it is a complex. The more we get into that, there is a board meeting tomorrow. Maybe I can put that on the agenda item to see where they want to make the decision. I'm from my point of view, looking down the road, yeah, they're committed already to remodel the building next to the boys' group home and to 16 beds, move into that building. And that would be the people that would have gone into this building. So we're not going to remodel that building, I wouldn't think, and then move the kids back into the other building. So then it's only left for the educational aspect at this point, which I think we have to find out where the school comes from that. So because I'm thinking Prairie Lakes will look at this building as that, okay, we don't need this building anymore, and the education of the children, that's really, the school's got to be part of that discussion too. So that's why we need a work session on that. But because of the timing and the needs for the building, I just think it'd be a good idea that there's a very good likelihood that and we own the building, as you said, and we can terminate that lease as well and take that over and negotiate and lease it out to the school, let's say, for example, or some other organization. I'm not saying we do that, and we'd have to see what the quality of the building and cost to repair it. And maybe we don't even want to go down that road. That's why I think the space study can say, hey, you don't want to go down this road, this is going to cost you this much. Okay, then our decision as a county is, I'm wearing two hats here. So I'm just kind of giving you a heads up that I think in the Prairie Lakes program will probably, stay where they're at, but there's no guarantee. I can't say for a fact, and there has not been a request.
To clarify, if I may, Mr. Chair, the space study, I think we're really getting off track, maybe in the weeds here a little bit, if I can say that. I think a space study is looking at, so the administration office, and don't quote me on these numbers, please, the media, is the administration office has 500 square feet, but the administration office could utilize 652 square feet. Okay, so the best.
Clarify, which is Prairie Lakes or?
No, the administration in my office, the county. And so because the intent to do this was our facility staff are kind of hodgepodging. Some departments are growing. You go to our main floor with Health and Human Services. We have a ton of space over in public health, and we are short space over in human services. You walk through our courthouse, and 60/40 is used and unutilized. Within this space study, they're all county buildings, but if we were to say to BKV or whatever agency, I want you to walk through public health or public works because we need a smaller conference room and we could really split the two. And so I agree with what Commissioner Dwayne Anderson said. It's really two separate pieces, but in all reality too, it's one piece, but it's just, what are we choosing to start with? I agree with both of you. I think Prairie Lakes does play a role in here, the building. But initially, the intent was to see if we could partner with the city, see if we could fix some of our space needs within Health and Human Services and utilize the courthouse space that we have in the county office building space. I think any county employee would say, Kelsey, we need more storage space. And so I think this is a two-facet process. I think it's okay to start here. And like Dwayne said, if we need to loop then in Prairie Lakes, the building, but I think we're getting it a little twisted here. We're not looping in Prairie Lakes, because if they sever that contract, then it's the address, 1804 structure that we would want a space analysis done on. But a space analysis on that structure, we need to do this before, because if we might not even need to utilize that space if Prairie Lakes severs it. If Prairie Lakes doesn't sever the contract, then I agree it would be Prairie Lakes Youth Programs direction to do that space study, because then they would be utilizing that space.
For me, the debate is not when we do the study over there, because it's obvious at some point it needs to be done. We study it, we use it again, or we tear it down. That's gonna be part of that study when it takes place. But the recommendation for Wold is based partly on the fact that they will do that for nothing. I'm pretty confident. And I'm not comfortable with that until it's in writing. I mean, I've done enough contracts to find out that it's better to ask the questions ahead of time than to find out afterwards.
Mr. Chair, I believe Mr. Gardner was before me.
I'll call on you. I didn't see you. I'll call.
Okay,
Commissioner Gardner.
thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think there's a rush in a sense, but we do want to take advantage of opportunities, and this is an opportunity. Do we include this or not? Why don't we go back and ask Prairie Lakes Youth Program, can you give us, if you're really thinking about ending the lease, let us know that. If not, and it sounds like it goes back to them, and then we can decide upon that. And we'll know that in a very short time, days.
Commissioner Gardner.
I'm going to defer to Commissioner Anderson first.
The point with
Commissioner Anderson.
yep, thanks, Mr. Chair. The point with this is if you're going to go, okay, now we want to expand over to that, you really have to relet the bids, because now you've changed the parameters, and you
That
can't
was
do
my
that
point earlier. Is what I
because it
said.
isn't
I said we should
fair.
amend it.
Yep.
And so I don't know. And then when we re-amend it, then we're going to go, well, now we're going to add this building, and then we're kind of getting way in the weeds on this. Is what I think.
Well, it's a big decision because we're talking $45,000.
But at this point, it's Prairie Lake's decision, and they should be doing their space study if they want to continue. They have to make up their mind on
Make
it.
a decision. I certainly can ask them and see, and let's give them until our next board.
But then if we're going to do that, then
what? Yeah.
we have to relet the whole project, because you have to give the other bidders another chance, because now you're saying, well, okay, we're going to do this, but what are you guys going to do on the side here for us? That's not really fair for the other people.
But to respond to that then is that when and if we do a space study at Midwest Technology Campus, we can't just add it on to Wold's. Then we have to open that up for bids.
That's what you said.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Or we could amend the current one because we had the fire since the original RFP.
But you're still basically reletting it.
Okay. Help me. I'm looking for some feedback too. If Prairie Lakes wants to end the lease, do we want to do a space study on that building? And I think it's important we do. And in doing that, then we would have to amend the lease. And
I don't know.
I'm asking that we just table this decision or put it off until the next board meeting, so you know, because one question is up to Prairie Lakes, and let's see if they can give us an answer on that, and then we have to decide what we want to do.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the things that this body is typically known for is making decisions and not necessarily putting them off. I think we have enough information to make a decision, and I would request that we call the question.
So the question has been called. Could you repeat the motion?
Yeah, what's the motion? Yeah.
To accept Wold's proposal, as I understand it.
The recommendation is to hire Wold architects and engineers for $59,500.
So I'm going to do a roll call vote.
Can
There's no
person do an amendment? No.
We call the question. Attorney Baker.
Could ask for
Which question?
So we have a motion to call the question. Two questions. Do we need a second on that motion, and can it still be amended before we vote?
To call the question, you need a second on that, an immediate vote without debate. You need 2/3 to vote for calling the question.
Okay.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion and a second to call the question. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign.
Aye.
Aye. So the question on the table.
That would fail. That's not 2/3. That's not 2/3. That's 60%.
So we can continue debate.
Continue debate. You can also, there's a
Amend.
question
You
on
can also
amendment.
amend.
You need a motion to amend with
Correct.
a second to that.
Commissioner Berg.
I would like to make an amendment that and help me phrase this, that we would consider adding that Prairie Lakes program, the address of it, as part of this space study, and that pending if we hear from them within 30 days if they are not going to be interested in the building anymore. So that would, we can still move forward with this, but we just wait to see if we hear back from them.
So is that a motion?
I think how
I
maybe.
want a discussion about this. Do we want to put a time frame on that? That's all I'm
You could say the motion would be contingent
there you
on
go.
staff verifying with Wold Architects and Engineers to secure Prairie Lakes could be included within that dollar amount. I think that would be a good amended motion.
I think it might be cleaner just to lay this over until they have a chance to have their meeting.
I would like to make Administrator Baker's suggestion for a motion.
Can you rephrase it?
You would,
Melissa got it, and she can rephrase it.
you would amend the motion contingent upon Wold Architects and Engineers confirming they could include Prairie Lakes youth programs if needed within the master plan for the space analysis.
With an estimated cost.
With included within that 59,000
okay.
said dollar amount.
Yeah. So, she stated the motion, but she can't make a motion, so I'll look for someone to make the motion.
Oh, I made the motion.
Okay, Corky made the motion, then we need a second. I will second the motion for discussion. I think that is the prudent way to go because I can support. Okay.
Go ahead.
I made the motion and I seconded it now. I'm gonna give my reason why. Because I can support that amended motion because then we will know what our cost is. It won't be, whatever they decide to charge afterwards. So then I can support the whole firm. Commissioner Anderson.
Yep. For me, I think it's kind of confusing for the people that are going to be doing the space study because they don't know whether or not if it's going to be used by Prairie Lakes or not used by Prairie Lakes. So then you're almost going to be comparing apples to oranges because if it's used by Prairie Lakes, it's pretty clear what it'll be used for. But if Prairie Lakes decides they don't want it anymore, then they have to come up with what they think it should be used for. And so there's two things that we'll be considering in that type of space study.
And I would respond to that with either way, whether Prairie Lakes does use it or does not use it. At some point, we're going to need a space study on that facility.
But I think, Mr. Chair, that Prairie Lakes would be the ones that would want to do the space study if they're going to keep using it. That's how I would see it. And so they should be the ones picking up that cost, if that's the case.
Well, according to the motion, there wouldn't be a cost. Because the motion said within
that would be yeah, that's true, I guess.
59,000.
I stand corrected on that.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for either Andy or Kelsey. This amended motion, is that going to delay the start of the overall study potentially?
I would say no. It can probably be resolved in a phone call this afternoon.
I think so too. And I think still going back to kind of what Commissioner Dwayne Anderson said was we still need to do the 3 county buildings. Prairie Lakes then wouldn't get started because we don't know what is going to happen yet. And I think that's what Commissioner Berg was saying. He just wanted to make sure that this was looped in if needed. And so where I think staff would be comfortable with this and the amended motion is that we're still going to do the space analysis on the 3 county buildings. If Prairie Lakes sever within that time frame, they're not going to. If they sever, then would look at the Midwest building. Do you know what I mean? That would still then be included, but they're not going to go in and do a space analysis study in a month when the contract hasn't fully severed yet either. Is that my understanding?
That makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Because it gives us an option at the same cost to do it 3 months, 6 months, 12 months down the road, and I don't think it'll take that long. I just don't want to get surprised with, oh, that one will be 20,000.
Yeah, no.
Because
Mr. Chair, just to clarify then too, we're doing a space study. And so just because we do the study and we get the results, that's another whole step. Do we decide of what the parts of the study do we move forward with? And how does that fit into our budget? And is that something, I know we want to move and we don't want to we want to just get this done. It'd be nice to get it done. There is no rush. There is really no rush in my mind that we have to make this decision this minute. And it's a matter of getting the information and being able to dot our I's and cross our T's, and that we move forward with this. And I can support this, but I'm not saying I'm just going to support that all of a sudden we're going to start doing all this remodeling in 3 months, So we're just getting the space done. And so we do have a little bit of time to work with and to get all the facts and information going forward. So
Well,
this is kind of like a work session again.
yeah, and thank you for those comments.
It's all complicated.
Thank you for those comments, but I do think Andy said early on that there's a couple of things that are kind of at the doorstep that he'd like to deal with, and so that would be a good reason for making this decision.
And because
Now that we have the future space study of the Midwest, encompassed in the amendment. So, Melissa, would you reread the motion for us, please?
I honestly don't know if I can read it.
Well, we got to have it right. So,
I
think it's on the recording.
Yeah, the original motion was to approve the recommendation of hiring Wold Architects and Engineers for the 59,500 with the amendment that would be contingent upon Prairie Lakes youth programs being included with the space study at that 59,500 with
For 1804.
for 1804.
So we're going to vote on the amended motion, and the amended motion will then supersede the
We
original.
have to vote on the amendment.
Oh, you vote on the amendment and then you'd vote on the,
Yep,
if it passes, you vote on the new motion.
got to vote on the amendment.
You can't just combine them and have one vote.
The amended motion, my understanding, becomes the motion.
Yep, it hasn't been amended.
So I'll call the question on the amended motion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Now we got to vote on the main motion.
No, but the main motion is different from the amended motion. The amended motion becomes the main motion.
The motion is amended, yes.
Mhm.
And we did that with the amended motion. So it,
No, you need a second vote.
We gotta
Yeah.
vote on the.
Yeah, I call for
state the motion for us. What is the motion we're about to vote on?
To approve vote for the 59,500 to do the space study with the amendment of, well, he was checking in with,
Contingent upon
Contingent.
including Prairie Lakes.
Okay, you've heard the motion. I'll entertain somebody to make the motion. You've heard the language.
Motion was
We just
Vote
need to
on
vote
it.
on it, I think.
no, it's already.
Call a question, right?
So I'm calling the question. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those same sign. Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
Thanks, Andy.
Do we need a break?
Um,
Oh, wait, what do we got? Oh, yeah, let's do the calendar date.
So, before we take a recess and we begin our budget work session, we have two commissioners that are attending the Transportation Alliance fly-in, which is September 17th, 18th, and 19th. And there was only two options, I believe, for flights. And so the second meeting in September is a pretty important meeting. That's where the county board approves the preliminary levy. And so I would like to have all 5 commissioners present. And so what I'm proposing is September 16th. It's a Monday. We would do Monday at 9 a.m. or whatever time I believe it would work, but I think let's do it right at 9, or September 24th at 9 a.m. This would be a quick turnaround time between the September 24th and October 1st meeting. However, it's still doable. We'll be able to kind of flip that around pretty quickly within staff. It's night. We might not have as many warrants because they would get approved on the 24th, but we would still have probably additional warrants on the October 1st meeting. We still would have additional agenda items. I don't have a recommendation either or. We can make either date work.
Well, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
I don't know if we want to take a poll who's available on the 16th, but I would like to make a motion. We pick the 16th if that works for everybody. Because it's right a day earlier is all, and it seems like it fits in the time frame better.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second to move the the second meeting in September to September 16th.
At 9 a.m.
At 9
And
a.m.
Okay.
Just for you.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, we need a quick break. Want to keep going? We'll keep going.
I just have to set up the laptop.
Okay,
Oh.
let's take a quick break.
Okay.